Now, some of you out there can continue to sleep on Genesis as a luxury brand, but if I was in the market for a luxury vehicle right now, Genesis would be on the top of my shopping list. My name is Omar, and today I'm test driving the 2022 Genesis G70. I have a very soft spot for underdogs in my heart. Their drive and their hunger to come out on top of the competition makes them a very compelling option. Now, I'll say that I totally understand when somebody says that they won't buy a Genesis over an Audi, BMW, or Mercedes-Benz. Genesis still has a lot to prove. They have to build their legacy and their heritage just as its competition has done over the decades. Nonetheless, they are getting closer and closer, and personally, I would have no second thoughts about buying a Genesis. And if you're somebody in the market for an Acura, Lexus, or Infiniti, you should definitely consider cross-shopping a Genesis. That said, this here is the 2022 Genesis G70, and this is more of a mid-cycle refresh than a completely brand new generation model. You still have two engine choices to pick from, including the 4-cylinder turbo and the twin-turbo V6 that I'm driving right here. And this is still every bit of fun to drive. You have 365 horsepower, which will help you get from 0 to 60 in the mid 4 seconds. Handling wise, this thing is very, very impressive, almost as good as the BMW M340i. Taking this exit at like 50 miles an hour. Now somebody's in front of me, so I gotta slow down. But yeah, very impressive. I've also driven the Audi S4 and the C43, and I will say that the G70 and the M340i are probably the better handling options in the segment. And sound-wise, not as exciting on the outside, but on the inside, it's not so bad. And that's because you can adjust the amount of sound being pumped into the cabin. I have it on strong right now, but you also have normal, soft, and off. You can't really feel the difference unless you're in off or strong. This is strong. And now let me turn it off. This is off. So you only feel the difference between off and strong. Now, as a daily driver, this thing is pretty comfortable. You can keep it in comfort mode and just cruise around, but I did notice that while you're in comfort mode, it still kind of wants to get up and go. It doesn't restrict too much power when you're in comfort mode, which it kind of should, but I guess that's good or bad depending on how you look at it and how you drive. So should you consider buying the Genesis G70 with a twin-turbo V6 over the competition? Let's find out. Let me give you a quick tour of the 2022 Genesis G70, and then I'll give you my opinion on how it stacks up against the competition. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like. All right, let's do this. Now, since this is more of a mid-cycle refresh than a whole new generation model, we're not going to dive too deep into any details, but let's check out what's new for 2022. But before we do all that, of course, we have to do a quick launch control. To launch the G70, you want to be in Sport or Sport Plus mode. Then you hold down the ESC button right here until you see traction and stability control disabled in the gauge cluster. And then you put your foot all the way down on the brake, gas all the way down. You'll see launch control ready, and you release. Oh, man. So yeah, there aren't any major performance upgrades made here to the G70 for 2022 besides the fact that it gets a variable exhaust valve system, which makes it sound pretty nice when you're really pushing it. Let's take a listen to how it sounds on the outside. And as you saw during the launch control for 2022, the G70 also gets a Sport Plus mode because Sport is just never enough, you know? Now, a majority of the interior remains pretty much the same. The design, the layout, the controls, the knobs, and the buttons are basically all the same, and that's because this is a mid-cycle refresh. Now, personally, I cannot wait to see the next generation G70 because it will most likely get that new cool interior from the GV70, but I guess we'll have to wait a little longer for that. But for 2022, Genesis did add a larger 10.25-inch touchscreen display with navigation, which is standard across the whole G70 lineup. You also get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They aren't wireless, they are wired because, again, this is a mid-cycle refresh. Now, I've gone over this infotainment system many times before, so if you want a deeper dive, check out my G80 or GV80 review. I've linked them in the description below. Also new for 2022 is this kind of a digital gauge cluster display. Not sure why they stopped midway, maybe because this is a mid-cycle refresh, but yeah, one half is digital and the other half is analog. Although making it halfway digital, it did give them the ability to throw in my favorite Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia feature, the blind spot cameras. I absolutely love this feature. And of course, to celebrate the fact that the G70 is arriving into 2022, you have a launch edition. The launch edition gives you these cool blacked out 19-inch wheels that look pretty dope. It also gives you the option to pick between two matte paint finishes, including white and the Melbourne gray that I have here. And then the launch edition is the only trim that comes with this beautiful Sevilla red Nappa leather interior, which looks absolutely gorgeous. By the way, I did Google how to pronounce Sevilla. It's spelled Sevilla, and I'm pretty stupid and I would have pronounced it Sevilla. So it's good that I Googled it, and now you learn that it's pronounced Sevilla, and it's a city in Spain. And of course, you also get red seatbelts, because red seatbelts mean more exclusivity and performance. They add actually like about 2 horsepower to every sports car. I'm just kidding. All right, so how much does the new G70 cost? The base 4-cylinder turbo rear-wheel drive model starts at $37,525. And then if you want to hop into the twin-turbo V6, that starts at $42,100. My test model here is the twin-turbo V6 rear-wheel drive launch edition limited model, starts at $52,500. But not counting the launch edition pricing, you can max out a G70 twin-turbo V6 with the Sport Prestige package for right around $50,400, and that will give you everything you can ever want and need. Again, every G70 for 2022 comes standard with a 10.25-inch touchscreen display with navigation, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. You also get heated front seats as standard, along with the heated steering wheel. To clarify, the heated steering wheel is standard on the base all-wheel drive model. And then you get a range of very impressive driver assist tech, including adaptive cruise control, lane following assist and lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, and a range of Genesis highway driving assist tech. Now, as you keep moving up the trims and adding on packages, you get cooled front seats, officially called ventilated seats, but I'm always going to call them cooled seats. You also get really comfortable and smooth Nappa leather seats. You can also add an awesome 15-speaker Lexicon sound system, which sounds really, really nice. You can also get a wireless charger and a surround view camera, which is actually pretty crystal clear. You also get the blind spot camera, which I absolutely love. You can get a heads-up display, the Genesis digital key, so you can unlock and lock and start your G70 with your smartphone, or the digital key card that comes with it. And you also get a sunroof and much, much more. So yeah, the G70 can be had fully loaded with all that: a 3.3-liter twin-turbo V6, Brembo brakes, a sport-tuned suspension, all that for $50,400 if you go for the rear-wheel drive model, and $52,400 if you go for the all-wheel drive model. Now, the G70 is definitely the underdog of this segment, but by comparison, the Audi S4 starts at $50,300. Now, I'm talking about the base price. The BMW M340i starts at $54,700, and the Mercedes-AMG C43 starts at $56,500. And even the newcomer, the Acura TLX Type S, starts higher than a fully loaded G70 at $52,300. Let's talk horsepower and torque. Power still comes from a 3.3-liter twin-turbo V6, pumping out a total of 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque, and that's mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. And when it comes to 0 to 60, I clocked it in at 4.4 seconds, so it's not the quickest in the segment, but it's also not the slowest. This is very comparable to the Audi S4. As for fuel economy, for the twin-turbo V6 rear-wheel drive, you get 18 city and 27 highway. You have a 15.8 gallon tank capacity. I'm averaging, after a few days of driving and some idling, a total of 17.2 miles a gallon. Design-wise, I'm really liking the update here, and with the redesigned G70, all of the Genesis lineup now carries the brand's athletic elegance design language. On the front, it gets the signature Genesis crest grille, which gives it a lot of presence and a really nice stance. You also get the brand's signature quad LED headlamps, which are standard across the lineup, and they look really cool. I like these headlamps a lot. And then on the back, they got rid of the Genesis badge and replaced it with giant Genesis lettering. I don't know how I feel about the giant lettering. I kind of like the badge a little bit better, but this doesn't look so bad. And of course, on the back, you also have these awesome quad LED taillights. I do like the fact that Genesis has a similar design theme for all their headlamps and taillights, but they do manage to make it a little bit different on each of their models. And then for 2022, there are some new colors. You have some new metallic colors and 3 matte finishes, and again, 2 of those are available on the launch edition. But yeah, overall, I'm really liking the redesign here. It definitely makes the G70 one of the most stylish options in the segment. Now, before we hop inside and check out the interior, let's check out the cargo capacity. You can pop the trunk by pushing this button right here, and that will open it up to 10.5 cubic feet. Not that bad, not that great, pretty much expected for this segment. So there's not that much to talk about when it comes to the interior, since there aren't any major upgrades, but this thing is downright gorgeous on the inside. And of course, I'll admit, me feeling that way could be the fact that I have this exclusive red leather interior that's only available on the launch editions, but you can also get Nappa leather on other trim levels of the G70. If you just hop in the new G70 and feel around the cabin and touch different surfaces, you'll notice that everything is very high quality in here. Almost every surface is either wrapped in leather or soft touch materials. Even this area, all the way back here, which is usually plastic on other brands, is soft touch rubber material. And the Nappa leather on the higher end trims is a really nice touch, and it gives this a very high-end luxury feel with this really cool quilted design. It feels really, really nice to sit in here, and that leather smells super nice. Nonetheless, I am looking forward to the next generation G70 because it will be even nicer with a more stylish design and some ambient lighting. And one thing that I continue to find interesting is that Hyundai and Genesis and maybe even some Kia models have these buttons right here on the passenger seat, which allow you to move it forward and back. And that's really because sedans in Korea are considered executive vehicles, and if there's an executive sitting in the back and he wants more legroom, he can just push this button. The executive also has a coat hanger just in case he needs to hang his coat after a meeting. Now let's check out the rear legroom. You're working with 34.8 inches back here, 35 inches if you round it up, but every centimeter counts. I'm about 6 foot tall. That's my seating position. As you can see, not that comfortable at all for somebody my size. Somebody shorter might be a little bit more comfortable, but remember, you can always sit behind the passenger and move them up without their permission. So I recommend sitting behind the passenger. That legroom is pretty much standard for the segment. Legroom in the back seat is never that good for compact or mid-sized luxury sedans. Now, before I give you my opinion on whether or not if you should consider the G70 over the competition, let me point out a few random things that I love to show all of you. Random things that are also pretty important. You have a total of 4 cup holders, 2 in the front for the front passengers, and then you have 2 in the back for the rear passengers right there. And here are what the keys look like to the 2022 Genesis G70. You have the Genesis logo right back there. I really like the look and feel of Genesis keys. Feels pretty hefty. You don't have any smart park buttons back here because the G70 does not have smart park because this is a mid-cycle refresh. The next generation hopefully will get it. Door open and close sound from the outside and from the inside. Very solid. Charging game wise, depending on the trim and package you go for, you do have a wireless charger right there. And one of the few flaws about the new G70 is that you don't have a USB-C port. You only have a USB-A port right there and another USB-A port right here under the armrest. And then rear passengers only get one USB-A port to fight over. And of course, let's check out the indicator and horn sound here with the 2022 Genesis G70. Indicator first. Pretty Genesis, Hyundai, Kia style indicator. Now for the horn sound. Oh, very nice. And now that I've given you a tour of the 2022 Genesis G70, let me give you my opinion on how it stacks up against the competition. All right, let's get to it. Now, I think I've pretty much answered this. Personally, I think the BMW M340i is the best option in this segment, hands down. But if I wasn't going for the BMW M340i, the Genesis G70 with the twin turbo V6 would be my choice. Why? Because the value here is completely undeniable. I can have a fully loaded Genesis G70 for the starting price tag of all the German sedans that I've mentioned throughout this review and the Acura TLX Type S. And by the way, when I say value, I don't mean that it's cheap. This Genesis G70 fully loaded has a very high quality luxury feel. This thing is definitely as fun to drive as the competition is. Acceleration is insanely quick. Handling is very, very impressive. Now, what about the Kia Stinger GT, which is essentially the cousin of this car, if you will? Interestingly enough, the Kia Stinger GT fully loaded cost a couple $100 more than a fully loaded Genesis G70, but you do get things like heated rear seats, which you don't get here. And you also get a few more inches of rear legroom in the Stinger GT as compared to the Genesis G70. It's honestly a tough call between those two for me. Some of you might just have a battle of the brands and might not feel comfortable buying a Kia over a Genesis. That said, Genesis continues to put the luxury segment on notice, and I can honestly say that I would have no hesitation in buying a Genesis over other luxury brands. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace. God, this thing is outstanding.